and motion of Senator Antonio Trillanes IV on the referral of the alleged involvement of SPO3 Arturo Lascargas on the issues on extrajudicial killings and the Davao Death Squad revealed during his press conference. So, Mr. President, to sponsor the measures in the committee report, may we ask the chairman of the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs, Senator Pampilo Lacson, be recognized. Mr. President, I withdraw the motion, Mr. President. Withdraw the motion, Mr. President.
Chair takes out.
All right. Mr. President, we have a 1 minute suspension.
Session suspended.
We're ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session resume.
Mr. President, may I culpa? The committee report is correct. The committee report number is correct. The title is wrong, and so it's my fault. This is the committee report of the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs on the Mayor Espinosa killing, the Mayor of Alvera. So I move to recognize the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs Chairman, Senator Pampilo Lacson.
Senator Lacson is recognized.
Mr. President, fellow members of this august chamber, this representation has the honor to report on the Senate floor the result of the inquiry in aid of legislation conducted jointly by the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs and the Committee on Justice and Human Rights into the killing of Mayor Rolando Espinosa Sr. of Alvera Leyte as embodied in Committee Report number 46. Mr. President, running on a platform of eradicating illegal drugs and capturing big-time drug dealers and protectors, then candidate Rodrigo Roa Duterte had won the May 2016 presidential elections. Upon his assumption of office, he launched a relentless war against drugs. A few months after, this war has become a hotbed of controversy. The absolute discretion granted to the Philippine National Police in delivering the President's campaign promise was exploited, even abused by some police scalawags. Mr. President, allow me to commence this report by quoting President Duterte himself. Abuse your authority and there will be hell to pay, for you will have become worse than criminality itself, unquote. The integrity and conviction of his words will be put to test when what is at stake is not only the career but also the liberty of a certain Superintendent Marvin Win Marcos and other members of the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, Region 8, whom we all have all seen during our public hearings. Mr. President, on November 5, 2016, while alone inside his prison cell in Baybay Sub-Provincial Jail, Alvera Mayor Rolando Espinosa Sr. was killed in an alleged shootout with the operatives of the CIDG Region 8 in the course of implementing a search warrant. Nanlaban at napatay. Tila ito na yung default justification ng lahat ng drug-related killings na laman ng ating mga balita. Mr. President, the fact that an incumbent mayor had fallen in this war against illegal drugs is controversial enough. As we went through the facts and considered other reports, we discovered that what was shown before us is more intricate and complex than what was then presented. Although this joint committee recognizes and gives due respect to the authority of the courts to determine whether the death of Mayor Espinosa was a result of a legitimate police operation or a case of premeditated murder, we are convinced that the circumstances of this case clearly present a systematic clean-up made on any living trace that may reveal the involvement of several CIDG operatives in Kerwin Espinosa's drug trade. After all, in the words of Benjamin Franklin, and I quote, 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead, unquote. Apart from Mayor Espinosa, other persons connected with the drug trade of Kerwin Espinosa in Region 8, namely Edgar Alan Alvarez and Fernando Balagbis, suffered the same fate while incarcerated. Mr. President, the odds of being killed by the PNP while detained inside the government detention facility seemed to be very unlikely until now. Further, it is unbelievable that such similar fate would befall personalities involved in Kerwin Espinosa's drug trade. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this joint committee has found compelling reasons, based on evidence, to overturn the presumption of regularity accorded to the implementation of the search warrants conducted by the team of Police Superintendent Marvin Marcos, Police Chief Inspector Laraga, and other CIDG personnel together with members of the Regional Maritime Unit. Mr. President, this joint committee has conducted 3 public hearings and 1 executive session regarding this inquiry. I beg your indulgence as I discuss briefly the basis of our conclusion that the killing of Mayor Espinosa was not the result of a legitimate police operation but rather a case of premeditated murder. 1. Notwithstanding the guidance of no less than the Supreme Court when it said that, and I quote, a citizen's privacy right is a guarantee that is available only to the public at large but not to persons who are detained or imprisoned, unquote. The CIDG personnel maliciously obtained a search warrant in a court outside Baybay City to close the operation with an appearance of legitimacy. Number 2, the search warrant was issued by the judge after relying on a deposition of a certain Paul Olendan, whose allegations were proven to be false. Said deponent was around 100 kilometers away at the time he claimed he was inside the cell of the victims to see the firearms. Number 3, none of the statements contained in the affidavits executed by jail guards and the inmates could corroborate the allegation of facts and the details presented by Police Superintendent Marcos and Police Chief Inspector Laraga on how they implemented the search warrants. Number 4, instead of seeking assistance during the implementation of the warrant, the CIDG 8 personnel made the jail guards and the PNP personnel in the jail facility kneel down, face the wall, and surrender their firearms. Number 5, the CIDG's blatant violation of the rule of that law enforcement officers cannot go beyond the area specified in the search warrant in terms of the area to be searched. The search warrant could not be more clear. The area to be searched were cells number 1 and 2. However, the operatives proceeded to and searched cell number 7 just because Raul Yap was actually detained there. Number 6, the intentional and deliberate disregard for the chain of command in the PNP CIDG when Police Superintendent Marcos did not notify his immediate superiors, Police Chief Superintendent Elmer Beltehar, the Police Regional Office 8 Regional Director and CIDG Director Roel Obusan of the operation against a high-profile detainee in the person of Mayor Espinosa. Number 7, the illegal items reported in the inventory after the search were merely planted by the CIDG team in order to justify their operation. Mr. President, this joint committee has accorded value to the affidavit submitted by the jail guards and inmates stating the previous conduct of Oplan Galugat by the jail guards a few days before the CIDG operation, which yielded no illegal firearms and drugs. In addition, we considered the testimony of two inmates stating that they heard Mayor Espinosa telling the CIDG operatives that he did not have any firearm in his possession and pleaded them not to plant the same inside his cell. Number 8, the incredible narration of Police Chief Inspector Laraga on how he was able to fire at Mayor Espinosa, notwithstanding the alleged total darkness in his cell. To be more detailed, according to him, he was able to aim his gun properly after taking advantage of the spark coming from Mayor Espinosa's gun when he initially fired at his team. Number 9, the erroneous timeline of events presented by Police Superintendent Marcos in his accomplishment report and his testimony during the public hearings. According to Police Superintendent Marcos, the operation began at 4:10 a.m. However, we have on record the affidavit of PO2 Jennifer Monge stating that at 3:49 a.m., Police Superintendent Matira called the PNP ARTO, Regional Tactical Operations Office, Regional Office 8, requesting for the assistance of SOCO. Number 10, the hard drive containing the recordings of the CCTV cameras inside Baybay Sub-Provincial Jail, which went missing immediately after the CIDG team had full control over the penal facility. Finally, Mr. President, number 11, the testimony of Kerwin Espinosa in one of our public hearings confirming that he gave considerable amounts of money to the leaders of the CIDG operation subject of this inquiry. In fact, Police Superintendent Marcos had received a sum of 3 million pesos just last May 2016. Mr. President, allow me to go back to a few of my sub-questions in my opening statement when this inquiry was commenced. Why would Mayor Espinosa even attempt to put up a fight while he was trapped inside a prison cell with nowhere to go? Not to mention that he had surrendered and was fully cooperating, hoping to become a state witness. Nothing makes sense. Truly, up to now, there is no sense to it. Mr. President, after a thorough consideration of all the testimonies and documents submitted, let me tell you that everyone closely following this case, hindi po nanlaban si Mayor Espinosa. Mr. President, Mayor Espinosa, in his possible willingness to cooperate and provide information on the personalities involved in his son's drug trade, was silenced by individuals who wanted their participation concealed. It just so happened that these individuals had access and means to do so through abuse of their authority. Moreover, his death posed a clear threat to his son, Kerwin Espinosa, who was already captured and was on his way back to the Philippines at that time. The death of Alvarez, Balagdis, and even his father while inside the respective penal institutions is a statement that Kerwin is not safe anywhere and that the same fate awaits him should he decide to speak up and provide information that will aid the PNP in its war against illegal drugs. At this point, Mr. President, allow me to present the recommendations of the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs and the Committee on Justice and Human Rights. First of all, Mr. President, let us be reminded that the public hearings conducted do not in any way intend to overstep the authority and jurisdiction of our courts in the determination of the Espinosa and Yap case. However, as co-equal branch, we will request the judiciary to expedite its determination as to the propriety and liabilities or sanctions, if any, of the following. Number 1, Judge Carlos Arguelles for his failure to act upon the motion of Mayor Espinosa to be transferred to a safer prison facility, notwithstanding the fact that the deceased had expressed his intention to fully cooperate with the government and provide vital information relevant and of value to the administration's war against illegal drugs. Number 2, Judge Tarcelo Sabare Jr. of RTC Branch 30, Pasay, Samar, for issuing search warrants upon persons detained in a government detention facility located outside his court's jurisdiction. And number 3, Judge Janet Cabalona of RTC Branch 33, Calbiga, Samar, also for issuing search warrants upon persons detained in a government detention facility located outside her court's jurisdiction. Moreover, the Supreme Court should remind lower courts to exercise caution in issuing search warrants, strict adherence to the policy that judges should personally examine the applicant and the witnesses he may produce, with underlying emphasis on the words personally examine should be observed. Next point, Mr. President, we understand that the Espinosa case was filed before the Department of Justice as early as December 7, 2016. 3 months had passed and no resolution yet is forthcoming on the preliminary investigation being conducted. Considering the time, not to mention the overwhelming testimonial and documentary evidence presented before the five-man panel conducting the preliminary investigation, they should have already resolved this matter with urgency. As such, we respectfully request the Department of Justice to expedite its proceedings given that this case is impressed with public interest. In addition, Mr. President, among the intricacies that arose out of this case was the recall of PNP Chief De La Rosa's order relieving Police Superintendent Marcos and his men from CIDG-8 by no less than the President himself. This joint committee is of the opinion that the President should not be micromanaging the affairs of the government and should place his trust in the sound discretion of his appointees, including PNP Chief De La Rosa. Insofar as the organizational and operational aspect of the PNP is concerned, the Chief should be given full authority and control on how he will manage the day-to-day affairs of the organization subject to limitations set by law. Mr. President, the following are the proposed legislative measures that are responsive to the issue at hand. 1. The amendment of Article 1A3 of the Revised Penal Code to increase the penalty of false testimony or perjury. It is our view that the damage or injury caused by perjury upon an innocent person is no less similar to that of planting of evidence. Apart from the possibility of being charged and erroneously convicted, we also have to consider its effect on the reputation of the victim and his or her family. 2. The enactment of an Anti-Contraband in Prison Act, penalizing those who would provide, assist, aid, or abet in the introduction of any prohibited object or contraband inside a prison facility, along with the inmate who makes, possesses, or obtains, or attempts to make or obtain the same inside the prison facility, and imposing a stiff penalty for its commission. 3. The strengthening of the functions and mandate of the Internal Affairs Service of the PNP so as to make the disciplinary system more timely, transparent, and efficient. To be more specific, we seek to expand the motu proprio investigation powers of the IAS to cover all acts and omissions which tend to discredit or subvert the achievements of the institution. Moreover, for purposes of expediency, investigation should be conducted within a mandatory period not exceeding 30 days after the case has commenced, and immediately thereafter appropriate case or cases shall be filed. Accordingly, the IAS should reach the resolution of the case within 30 days at most after the same has been filed. And finally, Mr. President, number 4, we should look into and assess the foundation of police training in our country so as not to waste the resources of the government in retraining and reorienting erring police officers and to instill the right culture, values, and discipline expected from our uniformed personnel. It is incumbent for us to review and amend the law creating the Philippine Public Safety College, either by strengthening it or by transferring control over training from the PPSC to the PNP. Mr. President, before I end this report, allow me to express my strong condemnation on the killing of Mayor Rolando Espinosa Sr. and Raul Yap. Though they may have committed violations of our existing laws, the same is to be determined by our courts, granting that certain freedoms are denied to detainees, including the right to privacy. They are still entitled to the fundamental right to life as guaranteed by the Constitution. Mr. President, this war against drugs has reached unparalleled heights that will be remembered as part of our nation's history. What we have at the moment is a race against time, where we either succeed or fail in exposing the truth. Though it seems that the end is nowhere in sight, today we emerge victorious for exposing this rogue uniformed personnel. We may have won the battle today, yet we still have a war to emerge triumphant. Let today be a testament that, and I quote, no man in this country is so high that he is above the law. No officer of the law may set that law at defiance with impunity. unquote. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Lacson. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move to open the period of interpellation on the committee report.
Any objection? Hearing none.
May we recognize the minority leader to interpellate the chairman of the Committee on Public Order, Dangerous Drugs, Mr. President, Senator Relon and Lacson.
The Minority Floor Leader, Senator Franklin Deron, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman from Cavite yield a few questions?
By all means, to the distinguished minority leader, Mr. President.
First of all, we allow us to place on the record our congratulations to the sponsor and the chairman of the Committee on Public Order and Illegal Drugs for the comprehensive report that he has submitted to the Chamber. Indeed, we signed the report without any reservation. And if we rise today asking the sponsor to yield the floor for a few questions, it is just for clarification and to emphasize certain points. But let me repeat, Mr. President, for the record, we are fully supportive of the report and we extend our congratulations to Senator Lacson for a job well done.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd like to express my thanks to the distinguished minority leader for the kind words.
First of all, Mr. President, I recall that in the course of our investigation, there were certain commitments made by the IAS officials, particularly, committing on certain timelines upon which this investigation will be finished and the appropriate penalties imposed. As the good sponsor asserted in his sponsorship speech, time is of the essence when he pointed to the Department of Justice preliminary investigation. And we fully concur with that observation, Mr. President. Indeed, the deterrence is when the public sees that justice and punishment is swiftly done. And we do recall that in the course of the investigation of the committee hearings, there were commitments made by the IAS on very specific timelines. Will we know what happened to those commitments? And maybe, I'm sorry, if the gentleman can help this representation recall and spread it to the record, what were these commitments and the timelines, particularly on Superintendent Marcos?
As I recall, Mr. President, they committed to resolve the administrative case on March 31. So it bears watching if they will fully comply with that particular commitment. The commitment that they made, or the timeline, or the deadline that they made, kept on moving as a matter of fact. But the last deadline that they gave is March 31. So let us all wait for the final resolution of that case. And as per our committee report, which the distinguished minority leader also signed and concurred with, it is a foregone conclusion that the resolution would be such that the uniform or the PNP personnel concerned should be guilty of great misconduct and should be dismissed from the service. Mr. President.
All right. I'm glad to hear that, Mr. President, and we do hope that the timelines and the commitments can be complied with. Would you recall of any other commitments and the timelines that they made in the course of the hearing, Mr. President?
The Department of Justice also made the commitment to finally find the information after, of course, completing the resolution of the criminal case. And I heard from the Department of Justice that give or take 2 weeks from now, they will be able to resolve the case and find the necessary information in court.
Yes, I noticed that in the report and in the sponsorship, we highlighted with reason the delay in the resolution of the Department of Justice, the sponsor noting the fact that it has been more than 3 months since the case was filed with the Department of Justice. The case having been filed on December 7, 2016.
And it is subject to suspicion because the president, no less than the president himself, came out openly and publicly in trying to protect or defend the action taken by the CIDG-8 personnel. And so the Department of Justice, particularly the panel of prosecutors, are now facing a challenge, or public scrutiny on the action or the resolution that they will finally make or submit to the Secretary of Justice, Mr. President.
When we know, Mr. President, what is that suspicion in the mind of the good sponsor?
That they are under tremendous pressure from no less than the appointing authority, who is the President of the Philippines. Because if the President had expressed publicly that he would go by the action of the police personnel concerned or those involved in the killing of Espinosa and Raul Yap, then the Department of Justice is now facing a great challenge, a tremendous challenge to come up with an objective resolution of this of the criminal case, Mr. President.
It saddens this representation to hear that, Mr. President, because I do not know if the rule is the same, but during my time, serious offenses of this nature can be appealed to the office of the President. I do not know if that is still the rule today, that a finding of probable cause in serious offenses can be appealed to the office of the President.
I guess that particular rule doesn't change and won't change, Mr. President.
So that
We can always exercise as a body. The Congress can always exercise oversight.
no, I am referring to the possible appeal that an adverse resolution adverse to the respondents from the Department of Justice can be appealed
And
to the
reversed.
office of the President.
And reversed by the President.
And reversed by the President, especially given the statement of the good sponsor that the delay is suspicious. And the suspicious, he can avoid making the suspicion that pressures could be brought upon the prosecutors by the appointing authority, which is the President.
If that happens, Mr. President, I might consider very seriously joining the minority group in the Senate.
And we hope it doesn't happen, because the interest of justice should transcend beyond such expression of determination on the part of the good sponsor. We do hope that justice can be done, the rule of law can be carried out. But as I said, the first order of the day is probably to put the Department of Justice to task for the undue delay in the resolution of this case, and likewise the PNP through the IAS again for the undue delay in the resolution of the administrative aspect of this case.
Rest assured, Mr. President, distinguished minority leader, that in my official and personal capacity, I will follow up with the Department of Justice and the PNP to expedite the resolution of the both administrative and criminal cases.
Would the good sponsor, Mr. President, agree to an amendment which will condemn the undue delay on the part of the Department of Justice and the PNP IAS in the resolution of the criminal and administrative aspects of this case?
Mr. President, I'd rather wait. I would like to think that we should be prudent enough to wait for maybe another week before I will accede or accept the proposed amendment of the distinguished minority leader.
well, we want to approve this report as soon as possible. So that is why waiting for 1 week will go into our recess. And
Mr. President, may we propose an amendment to the minority leader? Yeah. We can simply say, call the attention instead of condemning. And I think that will be accepted by the sponsor right away.
In the committee report, we already called the attention. The distinguished minority leader wants a stronger language.
yes, because I think it's really necessary to put this executive branch, particularly the DOJ and the PNP IAS, to task. Because this incident has all the indications of a premeditated murder, as pointed out by the good sponsor. And it has been more than 3 months that the case has been pending. That is why resolutions of cases like this would lose its efficacy if we keep on delaying the resolution. We're not saying how the resolution should be rendered. We're just saying that the inordinate delay would not augur well for the trust of the people in the system of justice in our country.
Mr. President,
Yes.
with the permission of the two gentlemen, may we be allowed to sleep on it? We can take it up tomorrow, Mr. President.
We'll open our thesaurus and look for a more, shall we say, euphemistic word in lieu of condemnation.
Because, Mr.
We're
President,
saying in the same thing, but there must be some, some words that can substitute for condemnation.
Nevertheless, Mr. President, I believe that we can take this up tomorrow. As a matter of fact, approve the committee report, because I know that we have 100% support to the committee report, especially led by the minority leader, Mr. President. So, with the permission of the two gentlemen, may we suspend consideration of the committee report until tomorrow? I will schedule it
just
tomorrow.
one more point before we suspend.
I withdraw my motion, Mr. President.
With the indulgence of the majority leader. Mr. President, I know that this is a separate branch of government, and the gentleman sponsor was very careful in putting on record that he does not want, that this chamber would not want to interfere with what otherwise is a judicial process, meaning the disciplinary action on the judges, if so warranted under the circumstances of this case, where a search warrant is issued against a person in the custody of government, which gave reason for Superintendent Marcos and his group to do what they did. Is there anything else that we can do to prompt the judiciary to act more quickly on this matter? Firstly, we will know if there are indeed administrative cases filed against the judges.
It is of personal knowledge of this representation that indeed the Supreme Court is conducting their own investigation to hold liable the judges involved in the issuance of search warrants inside a penal institution, Mr. President. And I think it's only a matter of time before they will come up with their own resolution meting out the appropriate penalties to the judges concerned.
Yes, Mr. President. And maybe before we approve the report, we will consider some proposals for amendment either to the rules of court or, yes, in order that such can be prevented, such incidents that happen here can be prevented. Of course, that is subject to the approval of the Supreme Court, but hopefully before we approve this, the minority group can come up with a proposed amendment to the report so that we can highlight what we can contribute insofar as amendment to the rules are concerned, so that such clear malpractice of issuing a search warrant for people under detention, and when the jurisdiction is way out of the jurisdiction of the regional trial court, can be corrected and can be prevented from happening in the future again. So with that, Mr. President, yes, we shall be awaiting for tomorrow the proposed amendment of the good sponsor on the delay, on the ordinary delay in the resolution of the administrative and criminal cases that have been pending for the last several months. Thank you very much, and we suspend our period to interpret.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President, Senator Rivera wants to be recognized.
Senator Ontiveros recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President and Majority Leader. To the good sponsor, just a manifestation of support for the whole report, joining my Minority Leader and citing in particular one point that I really appreciate that the good sponsor raised in his report. The point, Mr. President, on page 7, that this joint committee is of the opinion that the President should not be micromanaging the affairs of the government and should place his trust in the sound discretion of his appointees, including PNP Chief De La Rosa. Insofar as the organizational and operational aspect of the PNP is concerned, the Chief should be given full authority and control on how he will manage the day-to-day affairs of the organization, subject to limitations set by law. I rose, Mr. President, to express participation for the report in general and particularly for this paragraph, given that the President indeed reinstated Superintendent Marcos and further said that the police officers involved in the killing should not go to jail. So once again, Mr. President, my highest appreciation to the good sponsor for this whole report, including this very wise opinion expressed to the President. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ontiveros.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, we will, for the record, we will schedule the committee report for number 46 tomorrow. Also, the committee report on EJ case will be available for interpellations tomorrow. So, at this point, I move to suspend consideration of committee report number 46.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Mr. President, I move for a 1 minute Senate minute suspension.
Any